Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, the capital of northern BC. Kind of a nippy day today. It's winter, as you can see behind me. A bit of snow, but even so, a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. Got an interesting guest today, an entrepreneur and somebody that has been around the world already quite a bit. So his name is Ben Thomson. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And you are an entrepreneur, and you have a company called HVAC.
HVAC Strong, yes.
HVAC Strong.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
Well, originally when I started the company, both myself and my wife were powerlifters. I had previously done strongman competition, so I was a lot bigger than I am now. That was just kind of how it came around. I already worked in HVAC, so we were trying to figure out what the name should be, and that's kind of what stuck.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, are you from the BC area, or do you have a bit of a Scottish accent?
No, I'm originally born and raised in Scotland, Aberdeen, so northeast.
Yeah.
And then I served my time working on oil rigs all over the world.
Okay.
In the North Sea, I was in Nigeria and Malaysia, all over the place. And then found my way over to North America.
So you were born in Aberdeen, Scotland.
Yes.
And then you got your training there.
Yes.
Did high school and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you then pursue a particular career, or?
So I kind of started off, I used to always do like technical drawing and 3D modeling and things like that. So
Okay.
I started my career in HVAC doing that. I was in the office, just kind of, doing layout drawings and design and that sort of thing. And then when I turned 18, that was when I was 17, when I turned 18, I kind of said to my boss, look, I don't want to sit in the office. I want to go out and work on all these pieces of equipment that I see and on oil rigs and things. And so
Now, for the benefit of our guest,
yes,
HVAC means what?
heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
Heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
Yes.
HVAC.
Yes.
Okay.
And so he said, yeah, no problem. If you want to sign a contract, to do your apprenticeship and kind of pursue that, then he was happy to send me away.
Yeah.
So that happened, and I kind of spent a lot of my time doing offshore surveys of equipment that was being replaced, so that we could do the design and procurement process for the new projects that were up and coming. And then they also would send me out to do the work as well, once we got to the final stages.
So you're not talking about oil rigs and those kind of things yet, or not yet?
Yes, this was on oil rigs, yeah.
Okay,
so it was more industrial, commercial, HVAC, larger scale things.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of, because that where we have kind of a view, I do, and many others do, I'm sure too. You see in the middle of the sea this big giant structure.
Yep.
There's all the people that have their feet on the bottom of the sea somewhere, and they're drilling oil.
Yep.
Wherever it is, all over.
Yep, that's the one.
Atlantic Ocean, and then all over the world.
Yes.
How did you get into? Because I have a friend of mine. Her husband was in oil rigs from Holland, and they pay very well apparently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as an 18-year-old kid, when you start working offshore, the money is fantastic.
How did you get into it though? Because it's just not okay. Well, okay, you may as well come oil rig. Good.
Yeah. So my mum was the operations manager at the company.
Okay, that makes a difference.
And so
right?
I was sitting one day in the reception doing my college work for my drafting course.
Right.
So I was sitting doing that, and the boss just happened to come down and kind of looked over my shoulder and asked what I was doing, and I kind of showed him, my drawings, my 3D model that I was working on, and the next week he offered me a job. So I kind of it was more, I would say, let's say more luck than anything else. I was just in the right place, right time. And I've been very fortunate with my career that seems to have been kind of an ongoing thing where I've been kind of right place, right time.
Right.
So I've had a lot of experiences in, that I'm very fortunate to have that. I don't think a lot of people, would have had the same opportunities. So I feel very fortunate for that, and I've seen a lot of places and seen a lot of the world, just with my work in general.
So how old were you when you got the job offer to go on the oil rigs?
So I started in the office when I was 17, because I kind of left school early and went to like community college to do my drafting course. So I started when I was 17, and then I went offshore just after turning 18.
So you're kind of a big boy. So am I in a way, but if you would have been 5'2" and skinny, you likely would not have got the job. Have I got that right?
Well, maybe. Who knows? I don't know.
Eh?
It's definitely tough work out there.
Yeah.
Especially doing
Lots of hands on, right?
Industrial commercial stuff. You have compressors that are the size of the chair you're in, right?
Exactly.
Some of the equipment is huge. But as I said, the experience of it all was fantastic. Not just being in the North Sea alone is pretty cool, but going to Nigeria, like Russia, Malaysia, all those sort of places.
I've heard that you go and you're there for 2 months and then you're off for 3 weeks, or God only knows.
It can be. North Sea is very regulated, so that you're only away 2 weeks is what it's meant to be.
Okay.
2 weeks at a time at a maximum. You can get written dispensation that allows you to stay a third week.
Right.
But they don't like to do that because they class it as unsafe. Because obviously you're working 12, 14 hours a day for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
Whereas overseas, it's not really regulated too much. My trip in Nigeria was 6.5 weeks on night shift the whole time. So that was pretty grueling. Malaysia was the same. We were away for, about a month at a time.
So how long were you doing, how many years?
I did 9 years on oil rigs,
Yeah, so now you're 27, 28.
Well, I'm 32 now, so
No, I bet then.
Oh,
yeah,
then?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
of course, yeah. Yeah, so it was, 9 years I did that, and I was kind of fed up of it for, it's...
So you went back to Aberdeen, to Scotland?
Yeah, and then I moved over to the States. So I was in Texas very briefly.
Somewhere along the line you got married, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's what brought me to the States, was the ex-wife.
Okay.
So I was in Texas briefly, and then in Seattle for a while, and then I made it up to Canada. And
so what were you doing in Dallas?
It was Houston. I was in.
Houston.
So
okay.
I was trying to get a job, but I guess because I was new to the country and I had new with a green card and things, I applied for 70 jobs and I didn't even get one call back.
Right. Not encouraging, eh?
No, very, very discouraging actually. So
when was that, Ben?
I've lost track. What are we at? That would have been 2017, was it?
Okay.
2016, 2017. Yeah, 2017, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I was in Seattle. I got a job offer and I moved up to Seattle. And then I met my now wife, and luckily a company in Vancouver got all the visa and everything sorted out for me, and then I was able to move up to Canada to work.
So you then moved up from Seattle
Yes.
to Vancouver?
Yes.
And then started to do...
Then it was more residential.
HVAC?
Yeah, residential HVAC for a company down there.
Yeah. So residential HVAC is again
Heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
and all that in combination.
Yes.
And so you did that. You worked for the company there.
Yes.
And that was probably in 2018, 2019, in that area.
Yeah, I think it was around 2018. And then once I got my permanent residency, I went self-employed.
Yeah.
And then so we had the business in Vancouver for just short of 2 years. And then we moved up to Prince George.
So when did you get to Prince George?
March last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so why Prince George?
Affordability is always a huge thing, obviously compared to Vancouver, which is just crazy.
Right.
My wife you know, a lot of her friends that she grew up with, and she knows from North Vancouver, they all live here. So, you know, it kind of made sense to move up here. We knew people here,
Right.
and obviously this is the largest hub in northern BC, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of made sense. You know, if we were going to make the jump to move this far, you know, Prince George was kind of the best option.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you started a company here of your own?
We just moved, so we moved the company from Vancouver. So we
Okay.
had the company.
You already had the company
Yeah, we
there.
had the company for 2 years, or just shy of 2 years, and we just basically wrapped all our jobs up that we had down there and
Yeah.
moved up to Prince George.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so far we love it. It's been the best thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I guess Prince George has a bad rep. I don't know. A lot of people don't seem to have good things to say about it. I don't have an issue. I love it here. You know, it might be cold, but the sun is always out. You know, I always say that to everybody. It's always sunny, you know.
Yeah, I came from Holland
Yep.
in 1965, so I've been here for 57, 58 years, so
Yep.
I like it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, Prince George is a bit like any other large community. There are always areas that are not so good, but I'm usually, I don't spend much time there.
Well, I mean, you can look at the east side of Vancouver is just as bad, right?
Yeah,
So
could be.
I mean,
Yeah.
every city or big city has its issues.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to take them with a pinch of salt and make the best of it. You
Yeah,
know?
what I like about Prince George is, you know, that it is a big town, but not really. You know,
Yes.
About 80,000 people, and then within a very short distance all around us, we have all the wildlife that you can possibly imagine, even inside the city for that matter. And we probably have, within 20 kilometers from here, we probably have 500 lakes.
Yeah, of
Maybe
course.
even more.
You know, it's and we say the same thing. It's a very blue collar town.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's friendly. You know, our neighbors baked us cakes and brought them round when we moved in, and we lived in our townhouse in Vancouver for a couple of years, and we
Never even
barely
knew the
knew what
neighbor.
our neighbor was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, it's great. We really love it. You know, I grew up on a farm, and my dad was in trades too, so it definitely has a more homely feel.
Yeah.
You know, for me, and it's enjoyable. You know, I really like it.
So you brought your company from from Vancouver here to the north.
Yes.
How many people do you employ?
There is just me at the moment.
Yeah.
Down in Vancouver, there was myself, and at one point we had 2 others.
Yeah.
But really, it's, you know, the constant struggle that everybody knows, especially as a small business.
Yeah.
Trying to get people, or, you know, and hold on to them is usually the hardest thing.
Yeah.
You know, so even now it's still just myself.
Yeah.
You know, we started looking for people basically before we moved.
Yeah.
And it's been an uphill battle.
Does your wife work in the business too, or?
Yeah, so she's co-owner. She does all the accounting and like back end,
Yeah.
you know, the stuff that I'm not good at.
So you have a team, you know.
Yes, yeah, and she also runs her own company as well, so she juggles lots of things.
Oh yeah. What kind of a company does she?
She
have?
has a photography company.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah.
So she has her hands full with that, and, you know, keeping me in check with our business as well. So
Yeah.
I couldn't do any of it without her, because she,
No.
as I said, she definitely does all the harder part, I would say, than, you know, just doing the grunt work that I do.
Yeah.
You know.
And then are you still involved in the gym and fitness and is she too? Or?
Yeah, we still try. Obviously, we have our daughter now, so time is, you know, limited.
How old is your daughter?
She's just wait to turn 3.
And what's her name?
Tegan. Tegan.
Tegan.
Yes.
Nice.
So she's a handful, and obviously running 2 businesses and everything as well. It's
Supposed to be, right? That's
exactly,
all
right.
we all go through this.
Yeah. So we do still go to the gym. We have the gym in the house. So we try and train as much as we can. And I recently just started playing again for the local rugby club.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we try our best, but obviously time can be limited sometimes, right?
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur, you know, I've started my company actually fairly quickly after I came here in 1965. The first company that I had was in 1967, and it was up in Watson Lake, Yukon.
Oh, really?
You know where that is?
Yep.
Have you been there?
I have not been up there yet, no.
No. Don't go there. No, I'm just joking. It's a place where it snows in July and you don't know if it's late or early.
Yeah, I'm
that
sure.
kind of a place.
I'm sure.
But no, it's beautiful, you know, and obviously I spent about 5 years there and I have a good memory of it. But it was a tough go being an entrepreneur, and I was managing a sawmill there, and access to people then already there was difficult, especially skill sets.
Sure.
You know, so, but being an entrepreneur, but that's what I always say to the people that aspire to entrepreneurship. A lot of them feel that they want to all be entrepreneurs, and a lot of times, with all due respect, they think that what you do as an entrepreneur is mainly bring money to the bank and plan for holidays. I said, no. That if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to work long hours, sleep fast, and maybe 7 days a week. But eventually, if you work hard enough, then things will turn around. But it's never easy. It always takes time to build it.
I'd agree with that.
And that's part of entrepreneurship. Doesn't mean I discourage anybody, but if a couple of things are required for entrepreneurship in my mind. You need to have a team behind you. Your wife, very critical to you, as you already indicated. And then, you know, the other one is, you know, you have to be willing to work long hours, very hard, until you establish the company and have a base.
Yes.
You know, and then once you have an established company, then from there on in it becomes a question of, are you willing to put in the effort, and then you know, and then find the opportunities that may be out there, but always be prepared to work long hours.
Oh yeah.
And that's hard a lot of times, and for a lot of people, if they do not have their family committed to that, then it can be very hard on relationships.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always say to everybody, you know, I will support anybody who wants to start their own company, but I always warn them that it will test relationships, it will test friendships, it will be the most stressful thing you have ever done, but it can also be the most rewarding thing as well. And I think that's what a lot of people, you know, forget is doing the work is the easy thing, especially in my business. Doing the work is the easy thing. It's all the other stuff that, you know, the emails, the long nights, you know, following up with customers, doing estimates, all that kind of stuff. It's that can be the wearing, you know, side of it. But I, you know, as I said, I'll always support everybody, and I will answer their questions and help them as much as I can. But you know, making people aware of that sometimes is the hardest part, right?
The skill to acquire, which didn't come natural to me, is I had to learn to sleep fast.
Or not at all.
Not at all. I'm just joking. But that's all part of it, and really it is. On the other hand, it can become very rewarding, and I always say the other part that I always say that a lot of people are, you know, aspiring to it, but then are always reluctant to approach somebody that is already entrepreneurial. And I always say, I encourage people not just to kind of knock on their door in the middle of the night and say, hey, can we talk about it? You know, if you skillfully, most people that have been successful become entrepreneurial are quite willing to help others, to at least share with them their experiences.
Yes.
And you know, and that again is very, very important. You know?
Yeah, and I find it's mostly the smaller businesses are more willing to help each other out. You know, I find once companies grow to a certain size, they lose that personability, right? Especially in a service industry like plumbing or heating or whatever, you lose that personability, and then I find that they're not as willing to help out. everything then is just about business, and if,
Yeah.
if they're helping somebody out, then they're maybe losing out on something else, whereas the small guys tend to stick together.
I'm trying not to do that. We have a fair-sized company.
Of course.
And I'm still quite very involved, but
Yep.
probably by exception more so than the rule. So I don't totally disagree with you in that, but I'm still very much involved in that. And in fact, we are quite involved in stimulating entrepreneurial thought within the community. And we're starting a program here in the next 6 months or so, or sooner, to again look at a program that will stimulate people to think about entrepreneurship and tend to bring them to a group and saying, this is what I'm proposing to do. And it's all in the making, but it is something that was being done already here at one point, but then somehow it did not continue. Okay. And I believe in that very much. Even now still, I was quite involved in that. I still have people coming back to me and saying, yeah, it was because of that particular ideas that I got from the feedback from the group in regards to the project that I wanted to start. That's what made me do it, and that's how I moved forward. And the other part about it was that the relationship after that continued, precisely pointing to the areas that you're referring to, is that once somebody starts to still have feedback is important. Yeah. So it's something to kind of watch for, and that likely will happen in the next number of months.
Nice.
So that we do that again. But entrepreneurship is it can be very, very rewarding, and it's always. I'm also writing a book about. As you already know, I've written a couple of books. The one is about, and I will get you a copy of this after we finish. But I just want to share those with you. Is that the one that I wrote is Against All Odds.
Yep.
It's not so much about hurrah, John, how well he did, but it's more about in spite of it all, how well he did. I was not very good in school. I failed grade 3, and then I failed grade 7 3 times. So I started working when I was 14. Yep. And then I was born in 1940 and was part of the Second World War in northeastern Holland. And it was a tough go for, the last years in particular that I still remember of the war. Saw far too much that we would not see, and was affected by PTSD and
I can imagine.
And the inner child and a number of other things. But then the other part, so this book is about all the challenges that a lot of people have, maybe here and there, but to say, well, everything must have gone perfect for this individual to get to this level. Not necessarily so.
And do you feel that your background then aided you and pushed you to be more driven and achieve what you have achieved?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ben. Let me tell you about the second book, and then that puts that a little bit in context.
Yeah, no problem.
So obviously, academically, I was not a success story, and got a job. And when I started at 14, they got me a job as a furniture maker, and I learned to become a furniture maker. But then I had this dream that I wanted to be liberated by the Canadian Army on April the 12th, 1945. It made such an impression on me. I always wanted to go to the land of my heroes from the time I was 5. I was trying to go when I was 17. They wouldn't let me. And then at 18, Holland then, 1965, I was 2 years in the Air Force, drafted. Okay. And then I finally went when I was 24 to Canada. Took very little money with me. When I came to Prince George, I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And but I had, just in case you wonder what this is all about, that's what I had in my pocket, $25.47. But what I did have, attitude, passion, work ethic, underlying as a foundation. And then it took me until I was, you say, well, when are we getting to this book then? Well, I'm working on it here. So then I walked into a store here, the bookstore on 3rd Avenue. Yeah, 3rd Avenue. And I picked up this book. The book's title was Driven to Distraction. Don't ask me why I picked it up. I have no idea. And I started looking at it, reading it, and it said ADHD. And I thought, oh my God. I was already 57 years old. That's me. And I wrote in Dutch in the book, now I finally know who I am. And so that is the other part of what I said earlier when you asked me the question, what gave me the drive to continue and to stay the course, is likely it helped me and it benefited me in the medium to long term. But initially, when I left Holland, I wanted to go to Canada. I wanted to build my own mill, start with nothing, because I kind of felt, because of my education, failed grade 3 or the lack thereof, and then failing grade 7 3 times, I felt I had failed, and I had to prove to myself, not to anybody else, that I could do it on my own. If I started with no money and very little of it, and then I wanted to build my own lumber mill. And, and I came to Vancouver on the train, went to the immigration office there, and then talked to, couldn't speak English, but fortunately there was a German fellow, and I told him what I wanted to do. He said, 1965, sawmills, then pulp mills and all those things. He said, Prince George, go to Prince George. So that's what I did. And then that's where I started. When I came off the bus, I had one suitcase, 3 books, and then $25.47, but I had a dream. That was build my own lumber mill.
Yep.
And so underlying, I still didn't know that I had ADHD, nor did I even know what it really meant. And, and the classic examples of ADHD is you're not very good to sit in classrooms for 4 years. And, that just doesn't work for somebody with ADHD. Yeah.
Both myself and my wife have ADHD. So, my wife, she...
diagnosed?
Yes. So she, left school grade 9 with a grade 9 education. And she has... she went to university and still has a degree and everything. She managed to do that. And she's very, very clever, but she was only recently diagnosed, just about a year, two ago, I think.
Have you read this book?
We haven't read it yet. We've been talking about it.
I'm going to give you one for your wife too, because I want to give it to her, to you to give to her, and to you both.
That'd be
because
awesome.
And so what I call it, and this brings us back to your earlier question when you said, well, what drove you or what motivated you? Now it all kind of falls together, I'm sure, in your mind, is that I call it a superpower. And I'm saying this for the people that are watching that are maybe not as familiar with it. I think we have something like 12 different companies and 3 silos in our businesses. The one is lumber, the other one is warehousing and logistics, and the other one is residential, commercial, and industrial real estate. Mm-hmm. We employ normally, right now it's a little bit less, but around 400 people. And then, I'm not saying this for hurrah, hurrah, John purposes, but I'm the sole owner of all the companies.
Yeah.
And then starting with 2547, not speaking the language, didn't know a soul, and in Holland, the reason that I came here is that because the land of my heroes, but I wanted to start new again because I knew I could. I had to prove it to myself that I could, not to anybody else, and saying, it took me quite a number of years until I found out that this was what I had from the day I was born, because that's how it works.
Yep.
And what bothered me about it is that there was still stigma around it. When when I read the book when I was 57, so I'm 82 now. So this 24 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever it is, and it took me probably 5 years before I talked to my doctor about it. And the doctor was a personal friend. He delivered both our daughters, and I knew him well. And one day I went to his office, and he said, "Hey, John, why are you here?" And I said, "I think I got ADHD." So we looked at it and did all the things that we do then, and clearly I did.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's still a lot of stigma nowadays, still, unfortunately.
And there should not be, No. That's why there has virtually been not a day that goes by that I don't find somebody that says, "I do too."
Yeah.
And it happens over and over and over again. I was last Thursday, I think, I did a fairly major presentation in Vancouver. 2 or 3 people doing that particular thing stood up and say, "I've never told anybody, but I have ADHD." And so it's less so all the time. But when I first became aware of it and talked to my doc about it, the problem with it was that there I'm in the process of building my companies. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do? Go to the bank and saying, I want to lend from you X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and saying, okay, and here's my business plan, and oh, by the way, I have a mental disorder. I hope it doesn't bother you. They call it ADHD. You say, "Have a nice day."
Yeah.
That fortunately has started to change. I'm hoping to be very active in it, hence the book. And then wherever the opportunity presents itself, and speaking about it more and more all the time. And the book, extremely popular. Actually, it was on the top list in Audible.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, from Amazon.
Yep.
And together with this one, actually, amazingly. And then I'm doing another book that's coming out in this July, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And again, comes back to what you were talking about earlier, is saying that as young people, but not necessarily young people, we find a certain direction that we go in, then saying, "I'm not happy with what I'm doing, but now what? Because we got a mortgage, I got married, and we got family, and now for the rest of my life, I'm not going to be very happy." So many people are in that position, and I say, no, change direction, and that's the book that comes out in July.
Nice.
And dealing with that is saying, finding your passion, living the dream. So where if you're doing something that you do not like, then it will affect your whole personality. It will affect everything around you. And I say change. So that book is coming out in July.
100%. And I would agree with that, completely. I have been in HVAC for, almost 15 years. And I don't think there's been very few occasions where I've thought, I want to do something else. I love HVAC. I love the trades in general. And unfortunately, I feel that they've been very forgotten about. Trades as a whole have built everything we have, along with other things, obviously, but definitely been forgotten about and still are, and there is the whole stigma around, oh, you want to go into trades, that's a lesser job,
Here.
Everywhere. It doesn't matter.
Not in Europe.
I don't know. When I was at school, I was very fortunate that my counselor kind of said to me, "Look, I know your parents, as I said, farming background, general contractor, he's like, I know your parents, I know your background, and I know for a fact that university and college is not going to be something for you."
No.
Right? And I was very appreciative that he was so upfront about that. Not that my dad wanted me to go into trades, because he worked through recessions and everything as well. Yeah. But I was very fortunate for that, and I was at a private school. My parents sent me there because my sister went. She was clever, and they thought they'd try it again, but it didn't work. But
Well, no way.
right? But, you know, I was very fortunate for that. But even then, you know, I still had friends then that kind of thought, oh, you're going into trades, you know, that can't be
It's a lesser,
a good move, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're now at the point where we have a huge shortage of trades, and I don't see it being sorted out anytime soon, unfortunately, right? And so, but anyway, digressing a little bit, but I do agree. Find a job that you love, and if you do need to make a change, you know, make that change. I know it can be hard, especially if you live in somewhere like Vancouver where cost of living is, you know, super high. Making a change sometimes isn't, you know, possible, but, you know, if you can find a way to do it, then, you know, I would follow it.
So, just coming back a little bit to what you mentioned, is that I was trained as a furniture maker from the time I was 14. And I've always been very involved in hands-on things. But the other part that I had, amazingly, I was very good with numbers. And apparently I'm a good writer. And, you know, and how can that happen with failing grade 3 and then failing grade 7 3 times? Some people said to me, tongue-in-cheek a little bit, is saying, how do you feel about having failed grade 7 3 times? I said, I feel terrible about it. Even now. I should have left earlier. You know?
Yeah.
More tongue-in-cheek. But the difference is that the formal structure of education, even now a lot of times, is not what we should be doing, and it doesn't necessarily achieve what should be achieved in terms of trades.
Yeah.
And I addressed that somewhat in the book. In this book in particular, is you know, it deals with what we call micro certification, and Dr. Tom Romer, you know, from BCIT, through circumstances, just by pure coincidence, I knew there was something in this book that when I had it completed, and it was released last year in July, just before, even when the deadline became close, that we had to get it to the printer, I knew there was something that was missing in the book. It talks about ADHD for people that have ADHD, and it is written in that way so that you can open this book anywhere and start reading, and then fall back in the pattern that you're most comfortable with.
Yep.
But there is something missing. All of that is in there. Describe my own situation. 12 other individuals, you know, they contributed to the book in terms of interviews that we did. The foreword is written by Dr. Tracy Lotz, who is a medical doctor and a surgeon. She is ADHD. So, and then what was missing is saying that, okay, so if we recognize ADHD, frequency of occurrence much higher than was first anticipated,
Yep.
what can we do about changing the educational system so that it is more effective? So micro certification is you focus on the core issues you need to know, and all the other things become secondary to that if you need them and require them. But first and foremost, you learn to focus on the core structure of whatever you want to be trained in. And so that we deal with that in this book.
Nice.
And, you know, so, and then I've always strongly felt about, and this comes back to what you were saying, is that I could not have done what I did now, and not initially when I first already was only here for 2 years, and I already was managing a lumber mill in Watson Lake, Yukon, and had bought a motel, I could not have done that, A, without ADHD, and secondly, not, for being entrepreneurial by nature, but also having the trade background the hands-on ability to touch things and fix them and work with it, because that's what's my training.
Of course.
And that in combination with the other things that I acquired alongside of it, helped me to do what I did. And even today still, with operations, is that I'm very much an operations individual,
Yep.
but I'm quite comfortable dealing with bankers and all the other things that I do.
Yep.
But all of that, the base was all of this here,
Yeah. No,
And then, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
The other thing that I did, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, is I always believed that the shortage of skill sets is something even today is a large and a big problem that I still believe we have to address. Hence, for the last 2, 3, 4 years, I've been talking about the Center of Excellence that falls the path of BCIT,
Yep.
and it should be here in combination of UNBC and the College of New Caledonia.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I mean, it's, just from my perspective anyway, as a small business, trying to find trades in general is difficult. It was difficult in Vancouver, let alone trying to find people, up here in the north. And then, we then have to try and overcome the hurdle of, okay, I've now got, say you get an apprentice, I've now got an apprentice, I need him to go to school. Well, now I have to convince him that to go to school, he's going to get paid EI, and he's going to have to go to the Okanagan or go to Vancouver.
Yeah.
To do HVAC, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
To have a trades school in town and not run an HVAC program is crazy to me. Is absolutely crazy. Because with the cost of living and everything, how do you expect a teenager to live on EI, go and live away from home, and pay for everything else?
It's not going to happen.
No,
right?
it's not possible, right? No. So you're stuck in the way of, okay, come work with me, I'll teach you what I can, but in the end you're not a skilled tradesman, certificated skilled
needs
tradesman.
that certificate.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't want to make promises to people that can't be, fulfilled. If I want to take somebody on, I want to teach them as much as I can. I want them to go to school, and in the end, I want them to have those certificates. If they have those certificates and later on they come to me and say, I want to start my own business, that's fine. I'll support them as much as I can to do that, right? I'm not here to say, no, you can't do that. You have to work with me.
Yeah.
But we need these people coming into the trade. I mean, as I said, there's such a shortage, and I see it's going to be minimum 10 years before we can even start to make a dent, in getting things back to the way they should be. And so it's very frustrating.
So 25 years ago or 30 years ago, I was a key part to acquiring a building. Mm-hmm. There was the old Canadian Tire building, and we added that to the College of New Caledonia, and it's the Trades and Technology Center, has my name on it.
Yep.
But when I made that presentation, and I made the presentation to the opening of that facility, I said, this is only a start, but that the hardest and the most difficult challenge for the region to attract entrepreneurship and capital and growth is not access to fiber or resources. It is not access to a rail system. It's not access to a road system. We have the best global location of anybody that could possibly wish. North America is just on the south of us, Asia, Europe on the other side. All of that is here. Capital is available, entrepreneurship is available. The main deterrent will be access to a skilled workforce.
Yes.
And that's still that way today. And the center of excellence that I've been talking about for the last 3-4 years is still something that we have to be willing to invest. And I was very involved in the college, but also in establishing the University of Northern British Columbia. And it was a battle at that time to get the support of the politicians of the day.
Yep.
And it was only when the people stood up, 18,000 people signed a petition, that we want a freestanding university in Northern British Columbia.
Yep.
And so we were able to get that done. The same has to happen to the Center of Excellence. It was only about 2 months ago, I did a presentation to BCIT at about a month or 2 months ago. It was, I love BCIT, and it's an amazing facility, huge, something like 30,000 students there.
Yeah.
And there's more recently they made an investment of something like $220 million of adding to it, which I say okay, but so it was actually, I showed a picture of it here, the Trades and Technology Center at BCIT, and $220 million, and it was supported by half a dozen force companies that contributed $2.5 million towards this entity, and all of that is good. But we need it here. We don't need a bigger BCIT there.
Agreed.
For all the reasons that we have CNC, the College of New Caledonia, here with all the satellites around it, and we have UNBC, the best small university in Canada with all the satellites around it, and extremely successful. We need a center of excellence. That's what we need. And I already committed $1 million on my own towards that.
Yep.
And I will keep fighting about it for all the reasons that you mentioned as well. That that we will not attract capital for all the normal reasons. It's not because of having the resources. It's not because of the location. It's not because of transportation. It's not because of market position. It's not because of entrepreneurship. It's not because of capital. It is because of a lack of the skilled workforce. And I, for the life of me, cannot understand why we're investing in other, with all due respect to BCIT, $220 million there. The time has to come to invest it here. But we need the communities, not only Prince George, but in Northern British Columbia, to stand up and say, now is the time.
Yeah, I read the article too, and it seems absurd that, the logging companies have put forward most of the money for this, and they're the ones who are going to struggle workforce-wise if we can't draw, people to the area, but also have the facilities to train them, So as you say, it seems pointless putting the money down to BCIT. You're going to train people up there, and then you have to try and somehow coerce them to come up to Prince George. Whereas we have people here, we have people looking for jobs all the time. If we can get the facilities to train them and provide our own
and
workforce.
They will stay here then,
exactly,
right? So they, again, for the same reasons as we said earlier, as it relates to HVAC, that if you have somebody here that you want to do the apprentice, then they have to go to Kelowna, Kamloops, or Vancouver
Yep.
to get that certificate. That simply does not make sense. The same applies here, that we have with the changing industry, not only the forest industry, but all kinds of industrial opportunities that exist here in Northern British Columbia. We must have people that we train in today's and tomorrow's technology.
Of course.
Because all of the technology that we use today will be changed as we go forward. And we do not have the infrastructure in place to accommodate that. And I believe that the communities, the people, the entrepreneurs like yourself and others have to stand up, and the public in general, and saying the time has come. We love the University of Northern British Columbia. We love the College of New Caledonia. Now we have to have, I call it a center of excellence, because I don't want to bury it by a particular name, but the view is that it is a smaller version of a BCIT, not necessarily with all the different ones, but it basically is oriented on creating the skill sets, and we need it now.
Definitely.
So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We have to. There has to be something here, or the community can't thrive.
Yeah.
And it struggles now, and it's only going to continue that way.
And it's not only, even businesses like ourselves, we've been fighting that same battle for a long, long time.
Yep.
So as you now go forward, Ben, so how do you look at your company? You're trying to, obviously we're going through a bit of a tough time in the industry. Industry meaning, my companies, the Brink group of companies, is also involved in property development.
Which I already work with yourself. We worked in the North Nechako development over there.
Yeah.
We're
doing a number of subdivisions there.
It's definitely a hard pill to swallow when as an entrepreneur you always are wanting to grow your company and move forward and things like that. And it left me for a while feeling quite, lost in what I wanted to do and whether this was something I wanted to continue. There's only so many years you can put in that much effort, and keep pushing forward and doing all the work, as well as trying to draw people in and getting shot down left, right, and center. So it leaves you very drained. Being a draftsman and things like that, I'm trying to still do my installation work, air conditioners and heat pumps and all that sort of thing, because we are the only contractor in northern BC for all the federal and provincial rebates. So that's a thing that kind of is constant, people contacting me. So we're trying to still keep that going, but I'm trying to lean a little bit more into my design side, where we can provide people who are doing, net zero homes or high efficiency homes with design packages to size their equipment for their home, to design their ducting for their home, give them basically a full pack that has all that information, all the drawings, everything for them, so that, they can have peace of mind that, they've got all the documentation, all the design, everything carried out fully.
Now, all of that area is changing as well, because we are looking now at the green homes, and we already, as a builder as well as a developer, we kind of looking at, that's the direction it will go. Well, what we already are doing is not being mandatory, but we already know the market will demand it. That's where the market is going.
Of course.
And that means that the challenge for you likely, and correct me if I'm wrong, is saying that the biggest challenge that I've always found, Ben, is that how do I, and that's the biggest challenge for any business, no matter what the size is, but how do I right size my business? Because if I'm too small, it's not right. If I grow too fast, I get big too quick. And all these challenges is, say, right sizing my business. Where am I now? Where will I go? And how do I get there?
Yeah, for myself, we're not in a huge rush. Obviously we would like to grow and have a couple more employees. We're not in a huge rush to do it. My dad, being a general contractor, always warned me that you never want to grow too quickly, because it can strain everything. It can strain you, it can strain your bank account, and things can go wrong very quickly. So he always told me to be methodical, to plan it out properly, and just take your time. And my wife luckily reins me in, because sometimes I can be quite quick at making decisions and things.
That's
so
a good thing.
Yeah, so she keeps the reins on, which is nice. And as I said, I couldn't do anything without her. But we would like to grow a little bit. We're just going to take our time and just see where things go. There's so much work in this town that there's never a shortage.
Right.
We're not stressed. We're not feeling rushed to do it. But
Right.
It would be nice. Would be nice to get there at some point. We did have an apprentice, and unfortunately we don't have him anymore. So it's another step back instead of a step forward. But you have to roll with the punches, and that's part of owning your own company. It's up and down, right? And you have to take the good with the bad.
And right now it's a bit of a challenge because from a building perspective the market has been slow a little
Yes.
bit, but there are indications that things will come back fairly soon, say in the next couple of quarters. Probably the market is already to pick up somewhat.
Yes.
But that's kind of...
And that's the thing, owning an HVAC company, that's something we have to pay attention to as well, right? Is how the market is and how it's going to maybe cool off or speed up, because that obviously has a knock-on effect to people's incomes and their available spending. And so I feel up here, although it has, slowed a little, I don't feel we're going to be affected as much as Vancouver, right? Because Vancouver was crazy how the prices went up and the market just spiraled.
Yeah.
So I feel it's going to be a lot more sustainable. And with Prince George, I mean, there was that article that just came out saying how it's the most affordable place in BC. I'm hopeful that it may attract more people, maybe more skilled trades, who knows. But it can be a good thing, and I do feel our market will hold.
I kind of look at, and to all our guests that are watching us, from far and wide, this is probably one of the most beautiful areas, that as somebody that was born in Northern Holland, although Holland, I love Holland as well, but I'm a Canadian and I love Canada. In particular, I love BC, and unique to BC is Northern British Columbia for those that love the outdoors.
Yes.
Because here we're sitting downtown Prince George. It takes me to get to my job about 5-6 minutes, not 2 hours or whatever it is.
Exactly.
And then all around us, the climate when I first came here, as we know around the world, global warming or whatever it is, we have 4 seasons here.
Yes.
The winters are okay and they are nice. Look out bright, the sunny skies, and a little bit nippy, but spring is around the corner. Yes. And then you have all the lakes and all the nature here. I could not imagine myself living in a jungle of concrete and with people and cars all over the place and spending 2 or 3 hours a day in my car to get to work.
I'm the same.
So that's what I love about Northern BC.
Yeah, and we're the same. I used to leave the house, we had the company in Vancouver. I'd leave the house super early just so I could get to the supplier. It'd take me 45 minutes to drive to the supplier before going to a job. Here, I leave the house, it takes me 8 minutes, and I can go to, downtown, and there's all the suppliers on the same street.
Right.
I can go to all of them if I want and still be at the job before 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's great. And you can drive, as you say, drive across town in 15 minutes from one side to the other and get off, and there's trails and there's lakes and there's everything. And as I said, it's the best move I feel that we've ever made for us, for quality of life for my family as well.
Exactly.
And as you say, it's pretty picturesque. Even if it is cold, it's still sunny and it's still nice.
But it's still not bad.
You can put more clothes on,
Yeah. Have you gone back to, is your family still, part of your family lives in Scotland?
Everybody.
Still?
I was the only one. So we're actually going back on Thursday.
Nice.
We're going back to visit, yeah.
Yeah, and so how long are you there for?
We're going for 10 days. We got 3 days in London because my wife's never seen London. So we're going to spend a couple days there, and then we head up.
Is she from?
North Vancouver.
From North Vancouver, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Has she been in Europe at all?
yes, we went back to Scotland a couple years ago before COVID.
Yeah.
And then we've done some traveling as well ourselves. So we like to travel. Obviously, with the pandemic and things, it's been a little slow.
Yeah.
But we had our daughter as well. So now that she's getting a little bit older, we're hoping we can do some more traveling and take her with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, anything else that comes to mind that's...
No, I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on. It's been great to meet you.
So I'm going to
talk
sign
about
the
everything.
books, and then
Awesome.
for our guest, it's and thank you for being my guest. It's again for our people that are watching. Again, for Ben Thomson had such an interesting career, coming from Scotland and then getting himself into a trade already there, spent his time working on the oil field and especially on drilling rigs all over the world.
Yep.
And then ending up in Dallas and then Seattle and then through that, but always had a bit of an entrepreneurial part to him, and then ended up in the best choice, in my opinion, he ever made, in ending up in Prince George, British Columbia.
No bias, of course.
Well, yeah, but not only that, is saying that the underlying tool of his success will be, there is no question about it, is the superpower. Entrepreneurship, and I'm going to sign, I need another book here for your wife, because I'm going to sign one for you and then another one for your wife as well. So, and again, again for the benefit of our guest, it happens so often a lot of times that we have guests like Ben and others that either during our conversation it becomes knowledge that they are ADHD, and in Ben's case, both him and his wife, and but also for the people that even now, that I say to the people in general, is that the book is important to understand about ADHD, because there is no question about that. You will encounter them either in your family or in the circle that you work, and to understand them helps you in terms of not only dealing with it, but to really recognize the benefits of being ADHD, and it will help you in relationships where there are others that are ADHD and sometimes are a little bit like, like myself at 82, I'm still usually in a big hurry. and that's all part of being ADHD. So I say everybody should get a book of ADHD and read and understand it. So Ben, I'm going to do this one to you, to
Awesome.
Ben.
Awesome.
Ben,
Thank you very much.
my pleasure.
No,
Good
no,
success.
it's my pleasure. Thank
And
you.
we'll stay in touch.
Yes, of course.
Okay, we'll do that.
Awesome.
Thank you.